Away from that issue, President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday, November 20th, declared open the 2017 All-Nigeria Judges Conference, which held in Abuja. At that conference, the president condemned the seemingly endless delays in settling cases and conflicting judgment from the courts. He also identified funding, inadequate personnel, and absence of modern technology aids as some of the problems affecting the judiciary. Having identified the problems, what can the executive do to ease the situation? What is missing from the president's speech? Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adesina, prefers some answers.
First and foremost, I want to congratulate Mr. President for attending that program personally. I believe it's a plus to his administration and to the judiciary of this country. Having said that, without any hesitation, I want to say that Mr. President's speech was very straight to the point, in the sense that it highlights some of the problems that are besetting the functionality of Nigeria's judiciary. He talked about underfunding. He talked about lack of modern equipments, modern technological equipments. He talked about delay. He talked about accumulation of cases. You know, to the extent that the highest authority in the country are fully aware of all these problems and impediments to efficient performance of the judiciary and speedy administration of justice is a thing of joy for people like me. But I also must say that Mr. President didn't volunteer the solution to any of these problems. And for me, that is a big gap. But suffice it to say that the problems that we've been highlighting year in and year out has now got the attention of the highest authority of the nation. Let me also say, to the credit of Mr. President, that this administration remains about the first that has really, budgeted reasonable allocation to the judiciary. This year, I think it's about 100 billion. And last year, too, it was about 100 billion naira. Before that, the highest we have got was 70 billion. I remember I made a very serious issue of the funding of the judiciary about 2014. In fact, up to and including 2014, allocation to the judiciary was on the descending scale. For anything in life, if you want value, you must be prepared to spend money. Nothing of value is free.
You did say that the president highlighted the major problems of the judiciary, but that he didn't provide any solutions. What were you expecting him to say?
For example, he talked about congestion of cases, particularly at the appellate courts. He talked about delay generally and the expectation of the ordinary citizen on the street who wants to have their matter heard and heard promptly. Let me just expatiate on these two areas. One is closely related to the other. It is the issue of delay that has occasioned congestion and backlog of cases, particularly at the Supreme Court. The last time I was in the Supreme Court, the case was adjourned to 2018, March 2018. Now, we have said this over and over again, and it warrants repeating, that the Nigerian Supreme Court is the busiest in the world, sitting Monday to Friday, hearing cases, hearing appeals, writing judgments, doing their own research. The question is, why must all cases end at the Supreme Court? There's no reason. We have articulated the point before that interlocutory appeals should be terminated at the Court of Appeal. Between you and me, appeal based on jurisdiction still go to the highest court of the land. There is nothing new on the issue or principle of jurisdiction under the Nigerian legal system. We have suggested that interlocutory appeals can wait for the substantive judgment, and then you take a holistic appeal together. But today, interlocutory appeals will still go as far as to the Supreme Court. If we address the issue of interlocutory appeals alone, either by eradicating it and by practice proceed or subordinating it to the main case itself, or even to say, okay, we allow it to a minute, to a point, up to the Court of Appeal, it will reduce the volume of work very substantially. That is as relates to delay and congestion in the appellate courts. Now, specifically delay, it talked about inadequate personnel too. Unfortunately, addressing all these things will require money. In Lagos State alone, we have about 46 judges. I was before one of our judges in Ikeja recently, and he said that he had about 400 cases on his list. I am not saying 400